A top professional will usually hit between 12 and 15 greens a round in regulation, but that won't stop him from beating par a lot of the time. Here's why. Here we are at the 13th hole at Loxahatchee Club. It's a par 5, and I'm left with about a 40-yard shot here short of the green. I've got maybe 20 yards of green and 20 yards of a fairway in front of me, and the shot has a little bank in front of the hole, maybe 18, 20 feet. So what we're going to talk about today is the sand wedge pitch shot. Throwing the ball up in the air and also taking the ball and hitting it into the bank and bouncing it up. The two shots that I would play around the green with a sand wedge. First of all, the first shot is played with the bounce of the club. In other words, the back end of the club. If you look at this, it's sticking up in the air. And if you would see if it was sitting on a shelf or sitting on the ground, you'd see that that leading edge is about 1/4 of an inch up in the air. Now, that's the way I want to play the shot. I want to make sure that when I contact the golf ball, that this sole of the club is what hits the ground, not the leading edge. And to do that, I make sure that the handle of the club does not pass the middle of my body until after it makes contact with the golf ball. The only thing that hits the ground is the bounce of the club, and the ball pops up in the air. Exactly the same way you would play a sand shot. That's the number 1 shot, and I'll show you what I mean. Doesn't really make a whole lot of difference where you play it in the stance. I play most all my shots somewhere off the left heel for all clubs, so it really doesn't make a whole lot of difference. You play it, if you want to hit a little higher, you move it up in the stance. You hit a little lower, you move it back. But it's not really that important. It's where you're comfortable. But your hands are right about even with the golf ball. Club face slightly open, a slightly open club, a slightly open stance. I break the club off the ball. Break my wrists, break the club right up in the air, and release the club from here so that my hands remain in this position here, and the club is released up and under. So here we are, picking it up and under. One more time. Here are hands even, head remains in position, contact the ball with my hands here. The ball is thrown up in the air and dropped very softly. Now the second shot that I might play from this position, I take the bounce out of play and bring the leading edge into play. By doing that, I move my hands forward, because here I'm going to play a lower shot with a sand wedge. I want to put spin on the ball, and the ball's going to hit into the bank, take one good bounce, and check. To do that, I don't necessarily move the ball much back in my stance. I just move my hands a little forward and my weight a little forward. And I pick the club up fairly abruptly, hold on very firmly with the left hand, and pull that down and across the ball. And that drives the ball a little lower. And into the bank. I'll show you one more time. I just move my hands a little forward and my weight a little forward. And I pick the club up fairly abruptly and pull that down and across the ball. Ball pops up and then checks. Hits into the bank and checks up. You notice that I took a divot with the second one. That's because the leading edge gets into the ground. Club went right down in there and picked that divot right up. With the first shot, there is no divot because the leading edge doesn't get into the ground. Both shots are effective shots. Both shots are good shots. Half the fellas play the soft shot. The other half of the fellas on the tour might play a spin shot. I think you choose the one of your preference. They're both very effective. The The second club, or the pitching wedge, and third technique I want to talk about is for little shots that, here we are, maybe 10 yards short of the green, and maybe 20 yards of green, and I really don't want to pitch the ball all the way to the hole. I want a little bit more run, but it's a little too far away to be playing a total pitch and run through this area. So, with a pitching wedge, I might play a couple of different kinds of shots, but basically I'm going to play just a normal golf swing. That. Use a little bit of wrist and let the ball run. There are times when I'm going to play it very firm and have very little wrists. And I think it's really a preference to you. Which way do you feel comfortable? I see a lot of fellows go out on the tour and they just sit there and they pick the club right up, never move their hands. They leave their hands right there. Play the shot that way. Other fellas never break their wrists at all. They're just right back. I don't think it makes a lot of difference which way you play it. It's whatever you're comfortable with, whatever works for you. Pitching wedge is sort of a compromise between pitching the ball clear up in the air with a sand wedge and running it totally with a 6, 7, or 8 iron. The next shot I want to discuss is a little pitch and run. It can be played with a 6 iron, 7 iron, 8 iron, whatever you're comfortable with playing it off the green. It can be played with 4 or 5 iron, or even up 9 iron or pitching wedge. But I play this shot a little differently than I do the pitch shots. I change my grip here. I use a putting grip. And what I use is a reverse overlap grip, the same as I use with my putter. Now there's 2 ways of playing a little pitch and run. And I think that one shot would be to play it exactly as you do a putt, with the club straight up and down, and just use a putting stroke. One more time. That's a good method. A lot of fellas use that, and it works very, very well. But the method I use, and I think that suits me better under pressure, is that I take the ball and play it right off my right foot, maybe about 6 inches off my right foot. I move my hands well ahead, have the club on the toe of the ground, or the toe of the club on the ground, the heel up, and my weight on my left foot, and try to hit halfway down on the ball, halfway on the top of the ball, not underneath the ball, but on top of the ball, and hit it low and drive it into the ground and make it run. The reason I use this shot is that you can play that shot with any lie. You don't need a decent lie to play it. The other shot, you have a tendency to want to catch it a little heavy sometimes, and the consistency's not as good. So I play the ball back here, pick the club up, hit it down, and make it run like a putter. One more time. Both shots are good shots. Both shots are effective. Choose the one that you like best for your game. The next shot I want to discuss is putting the ball off the green. You might putt the ball from 2 feet off the green, 6 feet off the green, 20 feet off the green. Here I'm about 7 or 8 feet off the green. I've got 50 feet of green to roll the ball on. And it's, could be a chip and run shot, could be a pitch shot, could be a variety of shots could be played from here. But I think you choose the one you're comfortable with. And I used to chip the ball all the time from around the green. And my first year on the tour, I'll never forget, I was playing with Arnold Palmer. And he says, "Why are you chipping that ball?" And I said, "Well, I just feel like it's, the right shot to play." And I mean, meaning the right shot is meaning that's what is the right thing by the book to play. And Arnold said, well, you know, I've always putted the ball off the green because I never worried about what the right shot was. I always felt like my worst putt would be as good as my best chip. And if you start to think about it, if you putt a ball and you hit it 4 feet from the hole, you felt like you've hit a pretty bad putt. If you chip the ball from 4 to 4 feet or in, you feel like you've hit a pretty good chip. So from a mental standpoint, you know, it's much easier to feel like you're going to get the ball close to the hole with a putter than it is with a pitching wedge or a chip and run or whatever club you choose to play. So I play every shot that I have the opportunity to play with a putter. Of course, that means I can't play it out of the rough, obviously, but if I have any kind of a smooth surface, if I have any place that the ball will run somewhat uniformly, I'll use a putter from off the green. And I do it exactly the same way as I would putt any other putt on the green. I just hit it a little bit harder for the fringe and then let the ball run. Hit one more here. And remember, all I'm trying to do is get the ball up somewhere around the hole where I can make the next putt. I'm not trying to hold this, although I find that I'll hold far more putts from off the green than I will chips off the green. Well, now that we've talked about how to play all the shots around the green, whether we play a pitch shot, whether we play a pitch and run, or whether we play a chip and run, or whether we play a putt from off the green or a Texas wedge, we got to figure out, when do you use them? How do you choose which club to play? Well, I suppose that you could ask 100 people and you get 100 different answers of what their favorite shot is. And that's really the whole crux of this issue, is that what is their favorite shot? What is your favorite shot? Which shot do you feel you can play the best? I think of one of these shots you've got to try and master, because when you really need a shot, you've got to be able to play it. Now, obviously, it won't work for every situation, but it'll work for most situations. And I think probably the most reliable of all of them is a sand wedge. 90% of the pros play 90% of their shots around the green with a sand wedge because they can carry the ball over most all the trouble. They can carry the ball to the hole, they can put spin on it, they can hit it dead, they can play a variety of shots. Some of the fellas play with pitching wedges, and usually pitching wedges, you're carrying the ball onto the green, but you're getting a bit more run, you're letting the ball run. Some fellas will play the little pitch and run where they take a little 6 or 7 iron and they run it, land it short of the green and run it on up to the hole. Or from off the green, even this far, which is 20 yards, they might take a putter and run it on up. I don't care which shot you choose to use. Choose the one that is best for you and you're comfortable with, and when you get in a tight situation, you think you're going to get a good result. I said before that if you can putt the ball off the green, it's the best way to get the ball close to the hole. Well, here are 2 little shots just off of the fringe where you can't really hit a putter. But there are other clubs that make the ball react very similar to a putter. First of all, is I take a shot here on a lie that's maybe 6-8 inches off the green, and I try to take a sand wedge and make it react like a putter. How do I do that? Well, I take a putting stance, putting grip, take the sand wedge, and make sure that I use the leading edge and hit it right into the middle of the ball. Use this leading edge. Why you say, why wouldn't I use a putter? Well, the putter's got this big flat surface, and the leading edge has got a sharp penetrating surface. And anything that we have in the way, it will penetrate through. So we use a sand wedge just off the green and make it play just like a putter. One more time. Now the second shot, sort of learned it from Tom Watson. He calls it his scuzz shot. What that means, I don't have any idea. But what it is, you just sort of make some sort of an ugly swing at it, and the ball just runs out there like a putter. Just gets out of the high rough and runs like a putter. And the way he plays it most of the time with a pitching wedge or a 9-iron. Plays the ball up off his left foot, his hands even with the ball, club face square. Takes a very low swing rather than an abrupt swing, and makes sure that his hands and club continue through the ball. It's not hitting down on the ball, but you never turn the club over unless you want to make the ball run. But most of the time you want to make run for a long distance. You make the ball run very softly by coming out with a very square face. And it's played somewhat like this. Those are two very useful shots around the green that try to make the ball react like a little chip shot or a putt. And I think they'll be very helpful in helping you get a lower score. Here we are to the right of the 13th green at Loxahatchee in a grassy hollow, having to play a pitch shot over a bunker to a pin that's set on the downslope on the other side. The shot's a relatively difficult shot, but one that can be made with good technique. The technique of the shot is the same as I use when I play a sand shot or any other pitch shot around the green. I want to make sure that I use the sole of the club into the ground and not the leading edge. And as you can see, the leading edge is about 1/4 of an inch off the ground. That means that the club, as it was sitting on the shelf, was just like this. And to play that, I want to make sure that I repeat the way the club was sitting on the shelf by not letting the handle of the club pass the middle of my body until after I make impact with the ball. Okay, here's a good lie and a bad lie. Really doesn't make a difference what kind of lie you have, because the sole of the club, whether it hits at the ball, an inch behind the ball, 3 or 4 inches behind the ball, it's going to slip the club right under that whole ball turf area, and you really are going to produce a pretty good shot. The only thing that makes a difference is how much grass do you have behind the ball. No different than when you play a sand shot. How much sand do you have behind the ball? That determines on how hard you hit the golf ball. So let's play the first shot here with a good lie. I play the ball basically somewhere up on the left foot, that may be up near the toe to the instep. Keep my hands even or behind the ball, slightly open club face. I break my wrists off the golf ball, get the club head up into the air, release the club so that the handle of the club doesn't pass the middle of my body. I then open the club face as I go through by opening my body. I let my body rotate open with a shot, just as though I'm taking the club, pitching it with a softball, or pitching a softball, or taking and serving a platter to somebody. It's just sort of very softly underneath the ball. Hit it somewhat like this. One more time. Keep my hands even or behind the ball. Release the club so that the handle of the club doesn't pass the middle of my body. I then open the club face as I go through by opening my body. Or if I have a bad lie, I take a little longer swing because I have a little bit more grass, but I play essentially the same shot. Pop the ball up in the air, hit it, and it rolls fairly softly. And again, I take a little longer swing, release the club so that the handle of the club doesn't pass the middle of my body. It's just sort of very softly underneath the ball. It's just one shot, one technique for all situations. Sure, there's going to be some situations it doesn't work on, and you have to improvise a little bit, but basically this will work for about 95% of the shots that you have. I think we've covered how to play a bunker shot pretty well in Golf My Way 1, but let me just review slightly. Obviously, we're using the sole of the golf club, just slightly open club face, so the handle of the club does not pass the middle of the body till after you make contact with the sand. And we swing the club up fairly abruptly, make sure we follow through and release the club. Very simple, very much, here we are, boom, right here. Up and underneath the golf ball. Okay? But the one thing we haven't discussed is the strategy of bunker play. When do we spin the ball? When don't we spin the ball? When do we want to make the ball run? What do we want when we want to do other things? Well, the shot that we have right here, I've got a fairly steep bunker. I've got a bit of a downslope. The pin's relatively close. Not a particularly easy bunker shot. So I might want to put a little bit more spin on this shot than one where the pin would be maybe 30 or 40 feet back into the green. Well, how do we go about doing that? Well, to put a little bit more spin on a ball, I'm going to hit a little closer to it, have a little bit more open club face, and pick the ball, club up a little bit more abruptly. That will put not as much sand between the club and the ball. I'll be coming at a little bit more of a descending angle. That'll put a little bit more spin and will give it a chance to stop better. Something like this. One more time. I'm going to hit a little closer to it, have a little bit more open club face, and pick the ball, club up a little bit more abruptly. That will put not as much sand between the club and the ball. I'll be coming at a little bit more of a descending angle. That'll put a little bit more spin and will give it a chance to stop better. Now, the next shot I might want to play is if I've got a lot of green, and I'll go ahead and use it here on this situation. The ball might run by the hole, but if I'm going to make the ball run a little bit where I have more green, then I won't open the club face quite as much. I won't pick up the club quite as much, and I'll hit a little further behind the ball. And you use that when you want the ball to release and run a long distance. A little square through the ball. Ball comes out, releases and runs. And again, I won't open the club face quite as much. I won't pick up the club quite as much. And I'll hit a little further behind the ball. Ball comes out, releases and runs. Now, we also might have a buried lie. Ball could be fried egg or a bad lie or anything. Now, I play that shot a little differently now, and then I picked up a little bit from Greg Norman. And Greg uses the heel of the club to get into the sand. What part of the club will penetrate the sand the most? And probably this little point right here of the heel. So instead of playing straight up, I move down where I penetrate the sand with the heel of the club. Open the club face rather than shut the club face. Bend over more, get a little further away from it. Pick the club up and drive that heel into the sand. With an open club face, the ball comes out fairly softly. And again. Open the club face rather than shut the club face. Bend over more, get a little further away from it. Pick the club up and drive that heel into the sand. Make sure we follow through and release the club. Runs up to the hole. It's a very useful shot. I think to think about the shot that you have, how much green you have, how much of a bank you have, if you want to have to hit the ball up in the air. In other words, on a bank like this, I might have to get the ball up in the air. So I don't want to be hitting the shot and hitting a low bunker shot. I've got to get it up. So to get it up, I might play it a shade more up in my stance. If I want to hit it lower, I might move it back in my stance to make it run. All these things are part of bunker strategy, and the only way that you're going to find out how you play bunkers is to get out and fiddle around with it. Get in the bunker, try different situations, try to make the ball run, try to make the ball spin, play a few buried lies, find out what works for you. Try all these different techniques, but remember, the end result is try to find the best technique that gets the ball closest to the hole. After all, that's what we're trying to do. Putting isn't quite 50% of golf, but it almost is. Thinking things out before you stroke pays off just as much on the green as it does getting there. Most people think putting starts when you arrive here on the green. Not so. Putting really starts when you're right back there on the tee, finding out where the pin is, finding out where I want to hit my tee shot, finding out where I want my second shot to go, finding out, how can I hit my second shot underneath the hole to leave myself in the easiest possible place to putt. We play practice rounds during golf tournaments, and you're playing your home course all the time. Look around you, observe, see where the drainage of the green goes, see where you've got your uphill slopes, see where your tough pin placements are, see where your easy pin placements are, see whether it makes a difference whether you're by the hole or short of the hole or to the right of the hole or the left of the hole. Assess all the situations. Put that in your mind when you're back there on the tee. And if you have the ability to be able to stand on the tee and see where the pin is, then you sort of have some idea where you might want to play your tee shot to get the best advantage, to get in the best place on the green for your second shot, to be able to putt from the right area. All this is part of strategy of playing a golf hole. Leave your ball in the place that you can best make a putt. I mean, it's very important. I look around me and I see the grain on the green. I see you can check by the color of which way the grass is going. I find out what side of the green I don't want to miss the ball on, where I have no chance for recovery. Now that part of the green might be all right under another day with another pin placement. But you have to assess all the situations, put it all together. And when you get done with it, you can play a more intelligent, more strategic, and more successful round of golf. When I get to the green, I look at the putt I have, look at the grain, look at the slope from behind the ball. And then walk around the side of the putt, check the slope on the side here, look at the cup, see what kind of an angle it's sitting, walk around behind the ball. Sometimes I find a little different break here than I found from the other side. I look at it, walk back around this side now, check the cup, check the slope. I can do this while my other playing partner is putting, while he is lining up his putt. I mean, the thing is, you don't want to waste a lot of time doing this. You don't want to hold everybody up by surveying the whole situation. But you want to make sure that you know what to do with a putt when you get up to it. You want to develop that routine so that when you stand behind here and get that last look at the putt, and you walk up, you know what you want to do, you know where you want to hit it, you know what your chances are of making it, whether you feel comfortable. You want to get a good, positive thought in your mind. You want to say, okay, I'm 5, 10, 13, 14 feet from the hole. That's what I look like I have here. I've got maybe 4 or 5 inches of break to the right of the hole. It's a little uphill. I can be firm with it. I can give it a good run because the ball's not going to run very far by the hole. My chances of three putting are very small. I certainly don't want to leave it short because I've got a putt that's very makeable. You get all those things in your mind. You get them firmly in your mind, and when you walk up to the ball, you take a couple of putting practice strokes, about a 13 or 14 foot stroke. You get that in your mind, you get it in your hands, you get that feel there. So when I walk up to that ball, I know what I want to do. I know I want to be positive. I want to get all the other things out of my mind, and my whole objective is to make this putt. So as I stand over the putt here, I get in my mind that I'm going to hit it. I know where I want to hit it, and then I hit it. Grain influences all putts no matter where you are. Even if you can't see it, it's there. And it's different in the northern part of the United States versus the southern part of the United States. If you're putting on bent grass greens in the northern part of the United States, or even if you have bent grass in the south, the grass always grows towards the drainage. Find out your general drainage of your property, and that's going to be your dominant grain. Then you look at the green and see where the drainage on that green goes. And that combination is going to be probably where most of your putts are going to break. You go to the southern part of the United States and you have Bermuda grass greens. You look for the setting sun, and the setting sun is generally in the southwest. So if you're putting in the summertime on Bermuda grass greens, you're going to break towards the southwest. You can count on that. So remember, drainage in the northern part of the United States, southwest for Bermuda grass greens. The long putt. What do you really try to do on a long putt? Realistically, are you thinking of holding a putt from this distance? Or are you really trying to two-putt it? Well, I think realistically, anytime you have a putt that's going to go up a hill, break to the right, go down a little hill, up over a rise, come down a hill, and break left, you're not really thinking of holding it. What am I thinking of? I'm thinking of trying to get the ball close to the hole, shoot as low a score on this hole as I can, and get down in the least number of strokes. Obviously, two-putt is my thought. Distance is the important thing. And whether we want to leave the ball short of the hole or beyond the hole, what's the next best putt to leave ourselves? I mean, in this particular putt here, it really doesn't make any difference whether you're a little short or a little beyond, but so we try to work on either leaving it somewhere in the area of 4 feet short of the hole to 4 feet beyond. I've got 8 foot to hit it in here. And so I've got sort of like a big old bucket up there to hit the ball in. And I think about it, and I'm a little uphill. I'm a little bit probably into the green. The drainage comes off the green, so I'm going to have to hit it pretty hard. Actually, the wind's coming. The wind is definitely a factor in putting. The wind's coming a little bit right to left, so it's not a big factor on this particular putt, but sometimes it is. So we want to think about all those things, but when we get up to the ball, I want to make up my mind what I want to do. Make up my mind that I'm going to hit the ball just left of the hole because it's got a left break, then a right break, and then back to the left. I'm going to look at it and say, okay, I've got 10 foot, 20 foot, 30 foot, 40 foot, 50 foot. It's about a 60-foot putt. I'm thinking 60 foot. I want to get that feel in my putting stroke right here. I've got 60 feet I'm thinking about. Once I've got that in my mind, once I know what I want to do, I want to get up and make a positive stroke and try to make sure I hit it that right distance. Okay, now that's a pretty good putt. A little 3-foot putt. Probably one of the most difficult shots in golf, but really should be one of the easiest. Why is it one of the most difficult? Because it's embarrassing to miss it. You stand up over it, you know you should make it, your partners know you should make it, everybody knows you should make it, and then you stand there and say, gee, if I miss this, I'm going to be embarrassed. Well, what you do is you take your mind off of what you're doing. Put your mind on making this putt. Once you miss it, there's no way to recover from this shot because, you know, how are you going to recover? By hitting a 6-inch putt into the hole? You've got to make this putt, and you've got to make them all. Sure, you're going to miss one every once in a while, but for the most part, let's be positive. And what I try to do is I have 4 different putts here. I have an uphill, a downhill, a right to left, and a left to right break. And what I do is I pick a spot on that hole that I'm going to try to hit the ball, and I try to drive it into that spot. When I'm putting that uphill putt, I pick the back of the hole dead center. If it's a straight putt, that's where I want to hit it. If I'm putting the right to left putt, I pick a spot, let's just say it's the top of the cup. That's where I want to hit the ball. If I have this downhill putt, I pick the front edge of the hole because the ball is going to continue to roll, and I pick that spot at the front edge, and I try to hit it to that front edge spot. And the left to right putt, I try to take that. If I'm going to pick the spot at the top of the hole here, that's the spot I hit. I want to aim it and hit it at that spot. Obviously, up the hill, I pick the back of the hole because I want to make sure that I get it up there and into the hole. Downhill, I pick the front of the hole because I want to get it just over the edge. And I hit it medium firm on both the side hill putts. That's how I putt short putts. Stand here, make up my mind what I want to do, aim it at that spot in the back of the hole, and hit it there. I pick the spot on the right edge of the hole, aim it, and hit it in there. I've got the putt going down the hill. Now I'm going to try to hit it at the front edge of the hole. Aim it there, and hit it there. Now the putt left to right, I'm going to aim it at the left side edge of the hole, sit my putter there, make up my mind I'm going to do it, and hit it there. Now if you can be positive on these little short putts, you're not going to miss very many of them. But if you're worried about missing them, you're worried about being embarrassed, you're going to miss a lot of them. So be positive. Pick a spot and drive it home. To close this putting segment, you know, it's just as important to have a stroke as all the strategy in the world. Now, I think a stroke is a very individualistic thing. I think whether you have a tap stroke, a long, smooth stroke, inside out, outside in, I don't think that makes a whole lot of difference. It's whatever works for you and whatever you're comfortable with and how you can line up best. And people have asked me for years, Jack, why is your head behind the ball? Why is your right arm so low? Why is your right shoulder so low? Why do you not putt with your putter going through the ball low rather than high? Well, it just happens to be the way I line up to a putt and the way it feels comfortable to me. I've tried to putt with my right hand being right dead behind the ball. I started doing that my first year on the tour. A little tip from Jackie Burke back in 1962 really helped me. I was really struggling when I first started, and I was putting with my right hand up on top. I moved my right hand under and immediately started putting well. I dropped my right arm down, my right shoulder, and what it did, it fit with the other part of my stroke, which was my posture, being behind the ball and looking down the line of the target. I've always looked down the line of the target, behind the putt, and my right arm and right hand has sort of acted like a piston, back and forth, right here, right down the line of the target. My left hand has just kept everything solid. Now that happens to be the way I putt. It really isn't important whether you putt that way or you putt some other way. Whatever way is comfortable for you is going to be the best way for you. Whatever way you can get the ball in the hole is going to be the best way for you. That happens to be the best for me, and I get the ball in the hole better that way than any other way. We complain a lot about golf's testing situations and trouble shots, but the challenges they present are really a big part of the game's appeal. Let's look at the best way to meet them. Driving into the wind or with a left or right wind, to me, are the two most difficult tee shots you can hit. I think driving with the wind behind you or the wind off the right is very easy because it's very natural to make a nice full swing, make a nice complete backswing, and hit the ball from the inside. But the natural tendency into the wind and with a left or right wind is to not complete your backswing. Never get your left shoulder behind the ball. I think when I'm here, I'm trying to drive myself here, and I get back, and I only get it back about halfway, and then I come open and I block and hit the ball out the right. Is that a familiar shot? You're darn right it's a familiar shot. It's a familiar shot for me, too. So when I'm playing with the wind off my left, or I'm playing with the wind in my face, I try to do one thing in particular. I want to make sure that I get well behind the ball with my left shoulder. Get back in here so that I can get a complete release and stay back behind the ball, get the ball in the air. Now, that does another thing for me, too. When I get back behind the ball, I'm going to hit the ball from the inside, which means I'm going to come into the ball at a low angle. When I come into the ball at a low angle, I'm going to hit the ball out with very little spin on it with the driver. If I come with a short swing and come down on top of the ball, I'm then going to put a lot of spin on the golf ball. So I'm going to hit a slice more than likely. With a left or right wind, obviously that's carried off, and into the wind, the ball balloons up in the air. So the object is try to hit the ball with very little spin, drive it through the wind. To drive it through the wind, I make sure that this left shoulder makes a complete backswing. I'll show you what I mean. Use this little tip. I think it'll improve your driving. Here we are again at the 9th hole at the Loxahatchee. 431-yard par 4. Wind left to right, blowing pretty hard. I kind of find that it's a difficult situation sometimes to keep a driver in the fairway. You'll find that a lot of times when you get a left to right wind, the ball wants to slip away from you. Because a driver, it doesn't put a lot of spin on it. The ball gets up and just sort of slips. And I'll quite often take a 3-wood under those conditions because it's more important for me to hit the ball in the fairway than to worry about distance. So I sit here and think about it. I said, well, can I get a 3-wood out far enough? Yes, the left to right wind is helping a little bit. It's going to hurry the ball on. The driver's going to hit the ground and be moving left to right and move through the fairway. But if I take this 3-wood, I can get a little bit more loft. I can get a little bit more spin on the golf ball. I can drive it into the wind down the left side, and when it hits the fairway, it'll hit a little softer. Yes, maybe I'm going to lose 10, 15 yards, but I'm going to end up in the fairway with a little bit easier shot to the green. So I'll change my tee by moving the ball down a little bit, throw away my driver, aim up the left side of the fairway, making sure I get a good full turn, make up my mind what I'm going to do, and then hit it solid. Nicely in the fairway, in play. You know, I think the hardest thing to do is to step up to a tee and be uncomfortable with the club you have in your hand. If you're uncomfortable with a driver, switch to a 3-wood. If you're uncomfortable with a 3-wood, switch to a 4-wood or to a long iron. Particularly in pressure situations, if you need to put the ball in play, don't play a club you're uncomfortable with. Get it in play. Get off the tee. Get past the awkward situation. Then you can go play golf. Playing into the wind is a very, very difficult situation. The natural tendency is to hit the ball harder. The harder you hit it, the more spin you put on it. The more spin you put on it, the more the wind's going to affect the ball. If you hit it straight, it's going to balloon it. If you hit it with a little slice, it's going to accentuate it going off to the right. If you hit a little hook, it's going to accentuate it going off to the left. Put you in a very awkward position. All these problems are caused by one thing: spin. So, and the harder you hit it, the more spin you put on the golf ball. Now, I'm sitting here at 180 yards from the hole, and I've even accentuated the situation by having an elevated position to play to a lower green. That even makes it tougher because obviously anything that's going to be faded or hooked, it's going to move further offline because of falling further. Most people will try to take a 5-iron, let's assume the pros, from 180 yards and try to hit it hard into that wind. Well, that spin is going to move the ball all over the place if they don't hit it just absolutely perfectly. So what is the natural thing to do? Go down one club, play a 4-iron, but that still means you're still going to have to hit the ball hard. Quite often, I'll go down to a 3-iron or even a 2-iron sometimes. I've got a 3-iron here in this situation, and what I try to do is take spin off of the golf ball so that the wind doesn't have any effect on the golf shot, and the ball moves through the wind with very little effect. So how do I do that without hitting it too far? Well, if I make this a short golf club, maybe choke it down and maybe make it like a 7-iron length with a 3-iron loft, then I'm going to get about a 5-iron distance. That is the theory. So here we are. I stand up to the ball with my short grip. I want to just take a normal swing, normal golf shot, but move the ball through the wind without spin. That ball landed a little short of the green and rolled onto the green. How many times do you roll the ball onto the green into the wind? Not very often with spin. But if you don't have any spin, the ball will just go through the wind, hit with very little force on it, and just run. It's a very, very useful shot when you're playing in windy conditions. You know, when you're playing in the wind, you're not always as lucky as we are in Florida, where you have a pretty consistent wind, and the wind, you throw up some grass and you can pretty well tell which direction the wind's blowing. A lot of times you're playing in the trees, and you bend down, you throw up grass, it goes one direction, the trees are blowing another, the flag's blowing another direction, and you really don't know what to do. Well, one thing that I generally look at are the clouds. Clouds above the trees are going to be generally going in a consistent direction. So I come up, I'll throw my grass up, I'll look up at the clouds. If they're in a consistent direction, then I know that's what the wind's going to do. I think it makes it a lot easier to be able to select your club if you get a general overall flow. Sure, you're going to get fooled sometimes by swirling winds in the trees, but that's a good general thought. The rough. Awful stuff in it, but sometimes you get in it. And no matter how well you're playing, sometimes you get a lie like I've got here. You know, the first thing you do is you've got to look at what kind of a shot you've got. I've got about 150 yards left to the green. I've got water to the left. I've got a bunker to the left. I've got a deep valley to the right of the green. I have some fairway short. I have maybe 30 yards that I need to carry the ball in front of me. And I've got a lie that I'm not sure that I can hit 20. I think I just basically should turn around, play the shot out sideways, take my medicine, don't compound my error. I've hit it 35, 40 yards. That's as far as I could hit it. Now I've got 110 yards left. I still have a chance for 4, and probably not going to make any worse than 5. When you're in the rough, there's a technique of how to get the ball out. But I think first you've got to understand what really happens to a golf club in the rough. What happens is, when you hit a shot with a normal golf swing, you're generally hitting the golf ball from the inside. Your club comes in at a low angle, starts catching on the grass, and the hosel of the club is what really hangs up. It hangs up, turns the club over, and generally speaking, the ball will come out low left. So generally speaking, somebody with a flat golf swing has a very, very difficult time of playing out of the rough. So if somebody with a flat swing has trouble, obviously you must use an upright swing and an open club face to counteract that situation to hit a good shot. So what I try to do is I try to open my club face slightly at address, stand a little bit more upright, pick the club up very abruptly, and cut across the ball slightly, trying to minimize the amount of contact that the hosel is going to get into the grass, and sort of slip the club through the grass and let the ball come out with a slight fade. That's the general idea of how I go play a fade. Now let's try the first shot, and I'll show you in slow motion what's going to happen when you make a flat golf swing out of the rough. Turn the club face over, ball's left, boom, into the water. Now, if I take basically the same lie, which was a reasonable lie in the rough, it doesn't have to be a bad lie to get that kind of a thing. Can't even get a reasonable lie in this rough. Now, I try the same basic lie, open the club face slightly, play the ball up in my stance a little bit, take a very upright swing, stand up tall, and cut across it then the ball should slip out and up in the air and fly. It should come down somewhere up around the green. If you apply this method to getting the ball out of the rough, I think you're going to find your recovery shots to be a lot better. There are two basic techniques that I use for playing shots out of the rough, and they're really dictated by what shot I have to play. If I can take the ball and carry it all the way in the green, that is my preferred method. And if I do that, I use an open club face, play the ball up in my stance, try to hit it as high as I can, because the ball's not going to have any spin on it, and try to land it as softly as I can on the green. I do that by having an open club face, ball up in my stance, aim slightly to the left of my target, pick the club up to the outside, and cut across the ball and throw the ball up softly. Second situation is that I have a lie that I can't carry to the green, so I have to run the ball. So I have to play a shot that the ball's going to land short of the green and run onto the green. Well, if that's the case, then I still want the ball coming out from an open club face, but I'll play the ball a little further back in my stance. I'll pick it up and I'll hit down on it a little bit more rather than sort of sweeping it or up on it, and make the ball move forward at a little faster pace so that when it hits the ground, it'll run. And I can get more out of a shot that way. Hopefully, there's not going to be a bunker in the green, in front of the green, or I can't play that shot. I'm just stuck. I've got a penalty. So here's the first one. Open club face, ball up in the stance, outside in swing, high shot, lands softly on the green. Works quite well. Second one, ball is down a little bit, not a very good lie in the rough. I still have the open club face because I want to make sure not to catch the hosel and turn the club over. Open club face, very firm with the left hand. Ball back in the stance a little bit, still pick it up, but then I hit down and drive through the ball. And the ball comes out low, hits the ground, and runs up on the green. Those are the two methods that I know how to play out of the rough. They're also very similar, just a little bit difference in ball position, but it doesn't change your mental approach too much. And I think that rather than having whole different stances and grips and all different kinds of things, to keep it as simple as possible makes it a whole lot easier. An errant tee shot into the high grass, buried under a clump of love grass. Not a very nice place to be. Well, first thing I better do is identify my golf ball and make sure it's mine. Unfortunately, it is. Now what do? Well, I've got about 165 yards to the hole. Obviously, no chance to hit it out of here. I've got trees in front of me, mounds around me, bunkers all around me. I might take a sand wedge, and let's just see where I could hit a sand wedge. Well, I don't think I can advance it forward because of the love grass. I don't think I can hit through the love grass and hit it backwards. I can't really go sideways very far. If I do go sideways, I'm going to go maybe into more mounds or into bunkers. Sometimes the best alternative is an unplayable lie. It's only a one-stroke penalty. And then you're back in play. The thing that you don't want to do here is have a multiple penalty. You know, you try to swing at it, you may not get it out. And then all of a sudden you're faced with the same shot again. Or if you do get it out, you know, you got to look where you're going to hit the ball. Where's it going to end up? Maybe it's going to end up in a bunker. Maybe it's going to end up behind a tree. Maybe it's going to end up in another clump. Well, we've wasted one shot. We've got it in trouble. Let's get it out of trouble. Let's pick the ball up. Keep that spot between the hole and me. And We've got some nice short grass down here. I have other options, obviously, on an unplayable lie. I can go 2 club lengths either side, well, that still keeps me in the high grass, or I can go back to the tee. My third option is to keep that point between the hole and me. And I will do that. I'm dropping about 10 feet back here. I drop the ball. I've dropped it in a very nice lie. Now I'm left with about 165 or 70 yards to the hole. Looks like about a 6-iron shot. Now, I don't want to end up back in problems again, so I want to make sure I've got enough club to get it over the grass, over the trees, and on the green. Let's make sure I make a good, solid hit. Place the ball well up my stance because of the mound in front of me. Make sure I get good, solid contact on the golf ball. Make sure I know what I'm doing before I hit it, and then do it. Aha. Back in play, and only a 1-stroke penalty, not a multiple penalty. Very seldom when you're on the golf course, you end up with the exact yardage and the club that you know that you can hit that exact distance. I think you always have to improvise. And a shot that I use quite often, or a situation that I use quite often, is if I'm halfway in between clubs. Rather than changing my swings or easing up on a shot or hitting another one hard, is I take the longer club and I just choke it about 1 inch and then just play a normal shot. So what I've done is, for this shot, incidentally, I've got about 146 or 7 yards to the hole. It's about halfway between an 8 and a 7-iron. So instead of trying to hit the 8-iron hard or trying to ease up on a 7, I'll choke 1 inch up on the 7-iron and play a normal shot. That should end up with about that right distance. So here we are, 1 inch, everything else normal, and hit it. That worked out pretty well. The fairway bunker shot. Middle iron, one of the most difficult shots in the game of golf. Not only because it's difficult to catch the ball squarely and hit it solidly, but because of all the problems associated with the shot. First thing, and the #1 priority, is to make sure you get the ball out of the bunker. #2 is that you select the club to get out of the bunker that will not have a problem with the lip in front of you. #3, you want to make sure, if possible, to take enough club, obviously, to reach your destination. And that club is going to be determined by whether you can get it over that lip or not with it. So here we are. We're at the 11th hole at Loxahatchee. We're on a bunker on the inside of the dog leg. It is a penal bunker, which means it's a fairly deep bunker, so we always have to watch the lip. But we're back far enough in the bunker here where the lip is not a great problem. I'm about 160 yards from the hole. I've got a 6-iron in my hand. I'm going to try to hit the ball cleanly. I don't want to take any sand at all. I want to make sure I hit the ball first. I don't want any sand. I don't want to obviously hit the ball fat. I'm going to choke the club slightly to allow for my setting of my feet down into the sand. I'm going to make sure that my head stays up so that I don't have any chance to drop into the sand. I'm not going to use much weight shift, because as I use weight shift, my feet are going to sink in the sand, which will also take me down. So my process that I go through in playing this shot is, one, I choke the club slightly, set my feet, make sure my feet are firmly planted on this shot, make sure my head remains high, and I'm going to play it fairly stiff-legged with very little weight shift and very little movement of my feet. Let's take a look at that one more time. One, I choke the club slightly. set my feet, make sure my feet are firmly planted on this shot. Make sure my head remains high, and I'm going to play it fairly stiff-legged with very little weight shift and very little movement of my feet. And try to pick the ball. Not a bad shot. Can you imagine that? 2 perfect drives. Look at them, side by side and both in a divot. If I ever get my hands on those 2 guys, are they in trouble? But seriously, every once in a while you may hit a ball and it does end up in a divot in the fairway. Somebody might not have replaced it, which he should have replaced, but sometimes he might not have, and there you are. You're sitting there, you're mad at him. You say, I wish I'd find that guy, but you still got to play the golf shot. Well, I'm about 35 yards into the hole from here. As you can see, down the line, I've got a little opening in the front of the green. I can bounce the ball in. Now, there are 2 shots I can play. That's why I've got 2 balls here. One is a little punch shot. That little punch shot is one that I would take an 8-iron from that 135 yards, choke the club slightly, square the club face, maybe even toe it in slightly, play the ball back in my stance. I'm not going to have much of a follow-through because of the divot. I certainly don't want to hurt myself on this shot. And then I pick the club up, but straight back, and then sort of pop the ball at the hole. The ball should hit short of the green and run on in. Now the second shot that you might have to play, you might have a bunker in front of the green. We don't here in this case, but we'll play the shot anyway. And for that I would change clubs. I'd probably take a 7-iron because I'm going to put the loft of an 8-iron on it. By opening up the blade, I put extra loft on the club. I'm going to pick the club up very abruptly and cut across the ball, trying to slice the ball to get as much spin on the ball as I possibly can so I can stop it on the green. So aim a little bit to the left of the target, open the club face, pick the club up very abruptly, cut across it, throw the ball up in the air, and hopefully stop it on the green. Now here's a trouble shot, a real trouble shot. Balls line up close to the tree, sitting on pine needles, close to a pine cone. I'm about 140 yards from the hole. I've got to play it over a bunker. What do? I try to walk around and try to play it right-handed, and I'm going to hit into the pine cone or the tree. I really can't get to the ball. I hit it over to the left. I hit it up into the mounds. Walk in front of the tree. I really can't get back a backswing. Well, sometimes the alternative is a left-handed shot. Now, to play a left-handed shot, I generally take a 6, 7, 8-iron, something like that, where I've got a fairly broad blade. Take it and turn it upside down so that I'm playing it really with the toe of the club. I just take a left-handed grip, make up my mind that I'm going to hit it, try to keep my head still. And if not any different than I would when I'm playing a right-hand shot. The most important thing for me is to keep my head still, so why wouldn't it be on a left-hand shot? I want to make sure I make contact with the ball. And I should be able to get a little bit of loft on it, carry it 50, 60 yards, get it out of trouble, get it down somewhere around the green. You know, I might gain something. I might knock it on the green if I hit it real well. As a matter of fact, 1989 Masters, the second hole, I had to play my second shot left-handed with a situation almost identical to this. I got it out. I ended up making 6 on the hole, but I didn't have to take an unplayable and take a chance of making 7. So here we go. I take a left-handed grip just like I would take a right-handed grip. Instead of being this way, I just take it this way. Put the club back behind the ball with the toe of the club down. I adjust the loft by however I want to turn the club. Get up behind the ball. Try to keep my head still. Make up my mind what I'm going to do, and then just do it. Out in the fairway, short of the green, certainly a lot better than chopping it around here 6 or 7 feet around the tree. A little short pitch for a par. A ball and a bad lie, or an awkward situation. A lot of loose impediments around the ball. This ball here is on pine needles. You know, I think, well, let's see. If I went down here and tried to move this, uh-oh. See the ball move? I move something 6, 8 inches away from the ball. That cost me a stroke. The same thing could happen with leaves, grass, an old divot, twigs. Anything could happen. You must be very careful. And I think that when you're playing on pine needles, they're probably the most dangerous because they all seem to connect with each other, and you can move one over here and the ball will move over here. So I try to be very, very careful when I'm around situations where I can have an opportunity for the ball to move. I obviously don't want it to, so I approach this shot very carefully. I look and see what my situation is. I look to see what's around it. I don't touch anything within a club length of the ball. Anything within a club length of the ball is, if I move it now and the ball moves later, it still costs me a stroke. I will be deemed to have moved the ball or caused the ball to move. So I will take a very careful stance. I will keep my club above the pine needles. There's no special way to play the shot. I'm going to play it a little bit like I do a sand shot because I don't want to be moving my feet all over the place, slipping. I want to try to keep my feet fairly firm, my club above the pine needles, and I'll pretty much pick the ball out of here, sort of like this. And I now can move on and play my next shot. But be careful. Loose impediments are a dangerous thing to have on the golf course. I mean, you obviously are entitled to move them, but if you're going to move them around the ball, you're always risking the danger of costing yourself a penalty shot. Every good golfer in history has practiced at least as much as he's played. But it's gone a lot further than just beating balls. Let's look at how I work at the game. Practice. What really is practice? Does that mean coming out on the practice tee and hitting all these golf balls in 10 minutes? Or does that mean coming out to the practice tee, find out what you want to accomplish, and be able to take it to the golf course? That's what I think practice is, not seeing how many golf balls I can hit in an afternoon. That, to me, is boring, non-productive, and it doesn't do anything. So what I try to do is I come to the practice tee, I try to get quality practice, not quantity practice in. I come out, and if I want to work on something, I want to work on that specifically. Once I get it, I move on to the next thing. I don't want to sit here and get it and then hit another 10 shots and get bored hitting that golf shot. It's not important to hit more of them after you have it. If you get it firmly in your mind, keep it in your mind, take it to the golf course, and use it. When you're going to the practice tee, remember, we want quality practice at the practice tee. So go find yourself a level spot if you want to practice level shots. Go find yourself a uphill lie if you want to practice uphill lies. But go find yourself good turf, the lies that you want to practice, and find yourself a wind condition that will best help you make good golf swings. I think the best wind condition to practice in is a wind coming from right to left. because it helps you in the proper sequence of motion. Once you get the top of your backswing, you have to use your legs first, otherwise you're going to hit the ball left. The second best wind is wind into your face, because it still promotes the same type of thing. You have to use your legs first. If you have a slight following wind, it's not the greatest, but a strong following wind is terrible. Slight following wind you can get away with, but it has a tendency to nose the ball over and you lose the true flight of the golf ball. The one wind I try to avoid practicing totally is a left to right wind, because a left to right wind promotes wanting to keep the ball from going right, and you swing over the top of the ball and you go out of your sequence of motion, and really you don't accomplish anything. So when we go to a golf tournament and I have a left to right wind, what do? I don't practice in it. I might warm up in it, hit a few shots, and go right to the golf course. If I have a right to left wind, I might stay a little longer and work on my golf game. I think to get quality practice, you must have the right conditions, the right turf, and practice what you're trying to take to the golf course. When I practice, I come out and I work on fundamentals. I don't work on little band-aids, gimmicks, little tiny things. I might try specific shots and play shots, that's fine. But when I come to the practice tee, and particularly early in the year after I haven't had a lot of golf, and coming out of the winter, and I'm starting to really start to work on my game, I work on basic fundamentals. I work on grip, I work on stance, I work on balance, body position, I work on head position. I work on all these things when I'm practicing. Those are the things that I'm out here to practice. I'm not out here to practice, well, if I happen to maybe slide my right finger down the grip something, or if I happen to have a long thumb or a short thumb. You know, I want to make sure that I have a good, sound fundamentals, and that's what I want to practice, because those are the things that are going to carry me through a round of golf, fundamentals. When I'm coming out to prepare for a round of golf, I want to prepare for that round of golf. I don't want to build a new golf swing. So I come out and I sort of take a sort of sampling of my golf clubs to warm up. I start out with a pitching wedge. I then go to an 8-iron to represent a short iron, a 5-iron to represent a middle iron, 2-iron to represent a long iron, a 3-wood sometimes depending on the golf course that I'm going to play, and then a driver, and then I sort of cool down with a few sand wedge shots for pitching. Now, that gives me a little representative flavor of what I'm going to use on the golf course that day. And I don't ever come out and try to practice for a long time. I come out maybe 45 minutes before I'm getting ready to tee off. I practice for maybe 25 minutes, go to the putting green, hit a few putts and a few chips around the green, then I'm ready to play. If I come out and I want to get in a practice session, then maybe I might be out here for a couple hours. But generally, I will not do that before I play a round of golf. If I'm going to do that, I do it after the round of golf. And after the round of golf, my cool-down session, which I do every day when I finish, and I usually find out that I get much better practice after a round than I do before the round, simply because I know all the mistakes that I made that day, and I want to correct them. So I've got something to work on, and something specific. And when I cool down, I use a 9-iron, 6-iron, 3-iron, and the driver specifically. And if I'm coming out for a real long session and want to really just work on my game and generally not for a tournament, that's when I'll use the 7, the 4, and the 1. That way, I practice with all the clubs in my bag. I'm not just wearing out just a few of them, and I really get comfortable, familiar, and friendly with every club in my bag. When I come to the practice green before a round, it's no different than going to the practice tee and hitting a few golf balls. I'm not really too concerned about the first few putts that I hit because I'm really not worried about making them. I want to develop a stroke, a speed, a rhythm, be relaxed, same as I do on the practice tee. So I start out with a few 6, 8, 10-foot putts and really just sort of be relaxed and roll them down. Just try to find out the speed of the green. Try to find out what the green's like. Don't really worry about it too much. And after I've hit those, maybe a few short putts, 8 or 9 long putts, I'm gonna hit another few middle length putts, then I'll finish up with putts that I should make from 3, 4, 5 feet, and really concentrate on making these putts, because those are my bread and butter putts for the round. And I always finish up putting before the round by putting the last 3 balls into the hole. I always want to walk away from the putting green with a good, positive feeling that when I get a putt, I know I can make it. You know, if you can make everything from 4 or 5 feet in, generally speaking, the longer putts are going to get inside that distance, so you're going to probably 2-putt at the worst. And if you get somewhere around that distance on your second shot, then you're going to make a lot of birdies. So these are the putts that are important, right here. Making sure that these get in the hole. Now, putting is no different than playing a golf shot. It's a routine. It's a preparation. And I work on that when I'm doing my practicing, just like the same preparation that I would use on the golf course. So I walk up, I want to line up the putt, make sure that I know where I want to hit it. I want to pick the spot on the hole. Let's just say this putt right here, I'm going to aim it, let's say, just inside the right center of the hole. I want to make sure that I get up over that ball with a positive attitude. I want to make sure that that's the spot I'm focusing on. That's the spot I'm looking at. And before I can change my mind, boom, I hit it right in that spot. Now, if I hadn't made that third one, I'd putt 3 more or maybe 6 more until I was sure that when I walked to that first tee, that I was confident I could make my putt if I had to on that first green. The game of golf is a difficult game. It's a difficult game to learn. I think it's very important for anybody starting the game to find a teacher. Go to your local PGA professional. Have him get you started. Have him give you the basic fundamentals. And more importantly, find somebody who will take an interest in you, somebody who wants to help you. I've been a very, very fortunate guy all my life. When I was 10 years old, I ran into a fellow named Jack Grout at Scioto Country Club. Jack Grout started me out with the basic fundamentals of the game. He had me in his Friday morning classes with 50 other kids, and we all started learning the game at the same time. By the 3rd or 4th Friday, Jack had me out showing the other kids. He says, "Jackie boy, come out here and show these guys how to hit it." And I'd go out there and I got all excited and I really had fun showing the other kids how to hit the golf ball. Well, through the years, there are times when I come out and practice and I come out and work on my game that I just cannot see everything about my own golf swing. So I need that watchful eye. And whether he actually tells me something or not, because he has taken an interest in me, he has given me confidence and makes me believe in what I can do to hit a golf ball. And that probably is the most important thing that you can learn from a teacher, is to have confidence and believe in yourself and believe that you can learn how to play the game of golf. Well, there it is, the other half of golf, the mental side, from a guy who always felt it was his strongest competitive suit. We all need to work hard on our swing technique and ball striking, but never forget that no matter how well you swing and hit the ball, it won't be reflected in your score until you've learned to play with your head just as well. Once again, I'd like to thank the membership and staff of the Loxahatchee Club here in Jupiter, Florida, for permitting us to use their golf course, and for all the help and support they've kindly provided. I hope you enjoyed the show, and good luck with the greatest game of them all.
From the beginning, when quality and craftsmanship produced the finest forged clubs available, there was the McGregor Golf Company. As a tradition, the proof of quality has been tested in the forgings played by the greatest players in the game. And for decades, McGregor forged irons and Player of the Century Jack Nicklaus have had a history of winning. The attention to detail, the combination of human engineering and computer-aided design, the beauty and simplicity of the Jack Nicklaus Personal by McGregor.
The pro is who has to sell the golf club. And if the pro doesn't like the looks of it, he's not going to sell it. So if the pro looks down and says, you know, that's a good-looking golf club, he's going to turn around and recommend it to his member. And that's really what it has to be. The member says, well, the pro says that's a good-looking golf club, but he goes out and hits it. And he hits it well, then he's going to buy it. And that's the combination, is having the pro like it, have the member like it, have the member be able to play it. If you can do that, then you've got a pretty good golf club. And what we've been looking for is trying to find a golf club that you know, has the feel of a forging, has the look of a traditional golf club, and the playability for not only a good player, but for the average golfer. If it's something that I can play with, then I can turn around and recommend that to the public. And the new clubs that we're playing, they're called, Jack Nicklaus Personal says JNP on the back of them. They're USA Forged Golf Club. I think they're one that I think that the average guy is going to enjoy using.
The JNP has the unmistakable appearance of a handsome, traditional forging. Taking much of its inspiration from McGregor's famous Muir-fueled 20th irons, the JNP is lengthened and slightly expanded. Side by side, the two blades are virtually identical. The same silhouette, the same diamond end scoring, and the same straight, crisp sole that great players have always preferred. The cavity-back design features total perimeter weighting. The weight is distributed around the club head, delivering outstanding moment of inertia. The JNP follows a winning heritage like no other line of forged clubs. A product that grew from the tradition of clubs that have built the most impressive record in professional tour history.